I am a scientist. Well, no, actually, I'm not. But I am a pretty good lifter and a good coach. Now, with this sheer volume of lifting advice out there, it can be hard to know for yourself what technique advice should I follow. So today we're going to use a very straightforward and simple take, loosely based on the scientific method, to help you individualize and assess lifting advice. Step 0, what do you want to change? In order for this whole process to work properly, you need to come up with a guiding question or a hypothesis. And it can be as simple as asking, will making this change make me stronger? But the more general the question, the harder it is to answer with any certainty. If your question is more specific, like, will insert cue here help my squat depth? Then we're more likely to arrive at a helpful conclusion. First and foremost, we have to compare apples to apples. You're going to basically be a scientist here, eliminating variables and having a control set and an experimental set. Step 1, isolate the variables and test. Here's an example. We're going to load 75% of your 1 rep max. Then we're going to perform some sets of 3 to 5 reps. Keep the rep number the same across each of those sets. For the first set, just perform the set as you normally would. This is your control set. On the second set, this is your experimental set, where you're going to make whatever adjustments you want to investigate. For example, if you're playing with a heavier touch on your bench press, this second set is where you test that. Now make sure to film both sets from the same angle though. A quick note, if you're investigating multiple different changes to your lift, try not to incorporate more than 1 cue per experimental set. If you're changing too many of those variables at once, you can muddy the waters. And then if a set goes especially well or poorly, you might have a hard time deciphering which of those changed variables produce that outcome. Step 2, assess the differences. After we've performed our control and experimental sets, we need to have a criteria for evaluating them. Here are some example questions you could ask yourself. What feedback did you get in terms of how the bar speed was? Which set was more comfortable? Did we hit better depth or pause better? Was the lockout cleaner? These questions should be guided by your original hypothesis and help to answer whether or not the cues that you implemented had the impact that you desire. I also recommend that you record the answers to these questions after each set. It may also be the case that you're testing something that will require a longer period of time to assess. For example, will switching to sumo deadlift make me stronger? With a more general question like this, you'll need to assess it over a longer period of time. There's also a case to be made that with any of these cues or technical changes to lifts, that you should assess it over a period of a few back-to-back blocks as opposed to just a couple of single sets. You will, of course, have to use some critical thinking skills to determine what's right for you. Let's face it, being objective about all of these things in your own training is difficult. That's why it can help immensely to get a professional involved. If you want help assessing your technique, we've built the Calgary Barbell training app to help with exactly that. In our app, we do weekly video technique reviews for our lifters, plus we've got a pretty incredible app-exclusive Discord community, and on top of that, we've got 50+ programs to run for lifters of all experience levels and varying goals. But don't just take our word for it, this is Blaine. Blaine's one of our longtime app members, and in 9 months, Blaine PR'd his comp total by 50 kilos. He squatted 277.5, benched 170, and deadlifted 260. Blaine is just one of hundreds of lifters who have benefited hugely from the app, and if you're interested, you can check it out at calgarybarbell.com. Step 3, keep what works, ditch what doesn't. There are so many cues out there, and as a coach, I've got a pretty robust collection of cues, sometimes even multiple cues, to try to get the same technique outcome from a lifter. It's important to learn to filter things, especially once we start this process of analyzing and changing our technique. There are instances where we might want to keep a cue that didn't feel great right away. For example, if it allows us to get better squat depth. But in most cases, if a cue doesn't produce some kind of benefit, be it stability, strength, or comfort right away, we should just move on from it. We also want to be careful that we don't go making sweeping changes to our technique every single time we've had a bad or an off session. Lifters will often think, oh man, my bench was so bad on Wednesday, I must have to make some technical changes, without considering that maybe they just had a bad day. To help you avoid this, before trying to experiment with your technique, ask yourself, has this been an issue for more than just a block or two? Am I confident that my recovery and fatigue management outside of the gym is in a good place? Am I using intelligently designed programming? You should be able to confirm that each of these things is taken care of before you start overanalyzing a technique that's potentially already working for you. Step 4, distill it down. If we find some cues that work well, then we need to have a way to integrate them into the technique without needing a full paragraph you're trying to think through while unracking the bar. Often, when thinking about cueing, we end up with things like pull your elbows in or ribs down, which aren't bad starting points, but we need to start learning how to turn these cues into things that we can feel. When trying to implement a cue, we don't necessarily want to be thinking about how a thing looks, because when we're lifting, we don't have direct visual feedback, especially if you plan to compete in powerlifting. Ideally, we can translate these verbal cues into sensations that have immediate feedback. How does it feel to lock your lats or shoulder blades down? Try and create that sensation before you get under the bar so that we're not trying to translate words into visuals and then visuals into movement. We do, however, want some visual feedback, but to get this, we need to perform and film the set and then review that. This process is the creation of what I call cornerstone cues. Cornerstone cues are simple, just one word or even sometimes a concept that makes all of the other more complex cues fall into place. For me, on my bench, I know that I need to find my leg tightness and find a specific feeling in my shoulder blades. So my cornerstone cues are feet, shoulders. In my squat, I know that I need to have a really tight brace and get my upper back set before I pick up the bar. So cornerstone cues for the squat are brace, lats. When we get under 100+% of our max, we need to have small, reliable cues that are meaningful in a big way. The cues that we keep and stick with should take minimal brain power, and if we've done a good job of creating sensations associated with those cues, then we can implement them quickly and seamlessly. Note that this process of examination and elimination can be used for any number of changes that you might like to make, be it new shoes, new sleeves, or anything else you'd like to try out. All right, now I know we may have veered a little bit from the science, and to be fair, the association was loose at best. I really just wanted to say I am a scientist and wear a lab coat in this video, but hopefully some of the information in this video helps you create a process whereby you can evaluate some of the overabundant lifting and technique advice out there. If it did help you at all, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.